Through an anti-colonial approach, PFC centers the political urgency of the Palestinian struggle. They resist the normalization of Zionist violence, oppression, and hegemony in all aspects of public and private life, including within feminist spaces. Please give us a hand for Layla. Next, I will be introducing Madania. Madania is based in Portland and has been a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party for 5 years. The All African People's Revolutionary Party is a pan-African communist organization which believes that African people have one common enemy, and that enemy is capitalism. As an organizer with the All African People's Revolutionary Party, Madania is a practicing Pan-African socialist who always believes in and anti-colonial indigenous forms of communism and anarchism. Please welcome Madania. Next, we have Angelica. Angelica is the chairperson of Gabriella Portland. Gabriella Portland is a militant women's organization for national democracy in the Philippines. Angelica is also a member of the Bayan Oregon Regional Council. Bayan is a multi-sectoral alliance of progressive organizations in the national democratic movement of the Philippines with a socialist perspective. Please welcome Angelica. Next, we have Adil. Kashmiris and Kashmir organizations like Stand with Kashmir offer unconditional support and solidarity to Palestinians for the struggles for liberation of Palestine and for a collective liberation of everyone from Kashmir to Palestine. Adil, a Portlander who was born and raised in Indian-occupied Kashmir, will speak about India's inspiration drawn from Israel's model as India expands its settler colonial project in Kashmir. Please welcome Adil. And last but definitely not least, we have Ari. Ari is Kanaka Omi from the illegally occupied Kingdom of Hawaii. They are Yangtze, 4th generation Japanese and 4th generation Chinese descending from migrant workers brought over to work during plantation era Hawaii in the 1800s. Ari is Mahu, a gender identity unique to Kanaka that cannot be conceptualized by Western colonial perspectives of gender. Ari organizes with Half the Sky, a proletarian feminist organization comprised of national and gender-oppressed peoples. Ari believes in collective liberation and knows from firsthand lived experience the horrors and heartbreak that go hand in hand with US militarism. They know that liberation for their people cannot be realized without the liberation for all oppressed peoples. Ari lives to see the day where the chains of empire are broken, from all the rivers to all the seas, from Palestine to the Philippines to their beloved Kingdom of Hawaii. Please welcome Ari. Thank you to all our panelists for joining us here today. We'll go around and pass the mic / speak in the mic that's in front of you. Our first question for the panelists. Oh, yes. Matanya will be leading us through a libation now.
Yes, okay. So in the AAPRP, for every event or meeting that we have, we make it a point to pour libations and call in ancestors. So I thought it would be a good idea for us to start with that today. The way that will work is I will say some of the names. I'll see if the panelists have any names that they want to add. And then I will say Ashe. Everyone will say Ashe. And usually we would pour water somewhere, but we are inside. So we will all be libation vessels. And if you have a drink, take a drink after you say Ashe. And you will have the ancestors with you. They're here with us. And we can bring that energy to the panel. So, to start, there was certainly a massacre recently in Nusayrat in Palestine. American boots were on the ground. Bullshit. So everyone who ascended to martyrdom in that event, as well as another massacre that took place in El Kashmir in Sudan, surely again with American weapons. Along with those folks, of course, all the other folks who have ascended to martyrdom who continue to do so while American, European imperialism and colonialism is running rampant throughout the globe. In addition to that, also George Jackson, Muammar Gaddafi, Ibrahim Raisi, Hossein Amir Abdollahian, and the other members of the entourage who were recently in a helicopter crash, and Qasem Soleimani. And I will pass to y'all if y'all want to add.
Just recently, Jose Maria Cison passed away, so Kajoma. From the Lumad, we had a visitor in 2016, maybe. His name was Kalala, and he was killed by the armed forces of the Philippines. And then also, as a fighter of the NPA, Reka was brutally murdered by also the armed forces of the Philippines. So those are the ancestors I'd like to mention today.
Basically, two elderly people were crushed by an Indian army vehicle in Srinagar, the hometown, my hometown. And then white phosphorus was used on burning down two houses. So I would recall these people in these recently.
I will just add two people. My partner's Palestinian grandparents, Hakem and Noel, who were displaced in the 30s and 40s, respectively. I think everything has covered pretty much. Okay.
And before I forget, also, I have to call in my grandmother because she ascended in the last couple of days. And I'm going to say that she was a part of the Kenya Landed Freedom movement because my grandfather was, and so she was by association. So, all of those people are here with us. They are part of us. So I will say Ashe. And please take a drink. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadanya, for leading us through that libation. Now, I will ask each panelist to respond to these questions. Our first question, all of you will respond to, which is, describe why your nation is not yet free, and who are the oppressors preventing your national liberation?
As a member of PFC, the nation we're talking about is Palestine. And Palestine is not yet free because Palestinian land is currently under Zionist Israeli settler colonial occupation. And I mean, that's why Palestine is not free yet. In terms of who are the oppressors, it's Zionists and Zionist sympathizers and normalizers. In terms of why the nation is not yet free, there's a plethora of examples that I'm sure we can all think of, but a few of them that I just want to name are that using settler-imposed legal systems, the occupation continues to displace indigenous Palestinian people and demolish their homes and villages to build settlements for Zionist settlers and for tourism. The Palestinian government, or the quote-unquote Palestinian Authority, the PA, is a puppet government put into power through the 1993 Oslo Accords, which disarmed the resistance, criminalized anti-Zionism, and put Palestine up to neoliberal and capital markets. The majority of businesses throughout Palestine are neoliberal Western private corporations or NGOs, which don't contribute to Palestinian autonomy. It sustains mass levels of poverty and international economic dependence. And the last thing I'll touch on is that because the Palestinians in diaspora and the Palestinians in Palestine don't have the freedom to return or to move through the land without experiencing repression or surveillance or militarized barriers like checkpoints, roads, and parts of cities that are quote unquote Jewish only, and travel bans, etc. In the diaspora specifically, Palestinians and allies are repressed for being anti-Zionist, and that looks like job losses, it looks like physical assault, it looks like incarceration, militarized police brutality, etc. So in terms of why is our nation not yet free and who and what are our oppressors, it is a global network and system of oppressive structures and ideologies that touch every single part of Palestine, Palestinian existence, and like the essence of, very much speaking, all oppressed people. So I'll stop there.
Is it okay for us to pass the mic like this? Yeah, I'll switch it. So I'm really glad I'm next to you because I think that we can learn and see a lot of examples of how settler colonialism operates, especially through Palestine, and being able to like see so much of what's happening. Because the only thing that makes the Zionist entity special is that it's the youngest settler colony and it's happening like right in front of us. And that's the same thing that they've done over and over and over again, all over the world. And I guess I could go on forever, but that being said, the biggest thing that is keeping us oppressed is colonialism in all of its forms, including capitalism and imperialism, since those all come together. And I think one of our biggest obstacles, speaking of normalization, is that like to a large extent we have all normalized settler colonialism as acceptable and fine and something that we can't change because it's just the way it is. But I think that we have so much work to do against that, especially here in the imperial core, in one of the most recent virulent settler colonial entities that has never not been at war since its existence. The war machine is not separate. We are in it. We are part of it. We are complicit. The government is responsible. Like there's all that discourse, oh, our government's complicit. No, like the government here is completely responsible. And we are complicit because we haven't taken down.
Hi, okay, there it is. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of a history lesson, but really just give a context of what is happening in the Philippines. The reasons so the question is describe the reasons and the oppressors keeping your nation from being free, or the caveat that actually the people's movement is actually what is going to make the country free. No one is actually keeping us from being free. We are fighting for freedom. So the whole part, not for very long. So the U.S. has a very long-standing economic and military interest in the Philippines. It started during the Spanish-American War, so we're going all the way back, that resulted in the U.S. buying the Philippines from Spain. This purchase became the start of a long, deadly, and very unequal relationship between the U.S., which is our principal oppressor, and the Philippines, which is my homeland, and a lot of folks here's homeland. Shout out to the Philippines over there. So what we also know is geopolitically, for a country that sought and seeks to maintain control over the majority of the world, the Philippines is key. It is key for the U.S. At the gates of Asia, the Philippines provides access to some of the world's busiest ports and trade routes. It also comes with cheap labor enforced by a corrupt and subservient government that exploits the millions of already impoverished Filipinos. There is also ample access to raw resources, billions of untapped natural gas and oil reserves, among other minerals. Historically and militarily, we saw the Philippines be used as an offshoot of U.S. military bases in the Asia Pacific during World War II, with the Battle of Manila culminating in civilian deaths of over 100,000 and leveled the capital city. More recently, while officially banning U.S. bases in '92 and forbidding occupation of foreign military personnel in the Constitution, the unequal military agreements between the countries have effectively given the U.S. untethered and unrestricted access to Philippine military bases in the name of mutual defense against rising imperialist China. I think Brandon really showed us exactly what is happening in the Philippines. Currently, the US-backed dictator Marcos Jr., just like his dictator father, has welcomed the US with open arms. He's just inviting the US to come on in. This has looked like more military aid for the AFP, the same armed forces that enforced Brandon Lee's attempted assassination. More US military bases, more US weapons, more business deals that will disenfranchise everyday people, and more pain and more suffering. With this context, all of this has saddled the Philippines with three basic problems. One of them being imperialism, which I shared the most visceral concrete manifestations we see today. Bureaucratic capitalism, which, to put it in very plain terms, the way corrupt politicians essentially run the country as a business to line their own pockets and benefits and give very little to the people. And number three, feudalism, where there still exists a way of producing that relies on peasants harvesting natural resources and cash crops for landlords to sell to multinational corporations and for their profit.
I think it's important to understand that any of our struggles is not a conflict. Conflict happens between two equals. Um, but this is a relation between an oppressor and the oppressed. And the colonizer and the colonized. And the colonizer always reaps benefits from the colonized land, colonized resources, and similar is the case with everybody's nation here, and similarly for Kashmir. Um, um, we also have to understand how Kashmir is stuck between three nuclear powers: India, Pakistan, and China. So not only the geopolitical location of Kashmir, but also Kashmir is the highest militarized zone in the world. We have one armed Indian soldier in full gear with all the equipment, with all the guns for 8 civilians. So again, the ratio is 8:1. And why we remain occupied is how the occupation works. They use not only the militarization, but also the continuous settler colonial tactics, the criminalization of any voices, activism, detention, burning down of houses, occupation of houses, and continuous change of laws to suppress any voices that come up. I have friends who are, who have been, journalists who have been in detention for 5 years without any sort of, any access to court or plea. Um, and then, why we also remain colonized is because there is denial of self-determination, which was promised and documented by the United Nations. That is the reason why Kashmir remains occupied and oppressed. Thank you.
Hello. I don't think I should be like a podcast, bro. You know, yo, wake up, welcome to our podcast today. To go back, yeah. To go back to our question of why my nation is representing the Kingdom of Hawaii is not free. It feels a little bit more complicated, right? Because like our struggle as a Lakui, as a people, looks a little bit different than my colleagues that are on the panel. For those of you that are not aware, your so-called state of Hawaii is an illegally occupied kingdom, right? That annexation that happened was illegal. There is no treaty currently that like connects Hawaii to the United States. It's actually a joint resolution. And like, yeah, not to get super into it, but joint resolutions don't hold actually for annexation. So there is no binding paperwork that connects Hawaii to the United States. And then kind of like diving a little bit deeper into that, I think that like the US occupation of my kingdom, of my beloved kingdom of Hawaii, like has created a dismemberment of our people. There's a whole Kanaka scholar, Jonathan Osario, who famously coined this term, the dismemberment of our Lakui, that can like be traced all the way back to the first missionary contact that came into our island back in like the 1600s. So the missionaries came, right? They didn't understand our way of being, of knowing, of interacting with the world. It was so foreign to them that the only way that they could conceptualize things was through their own terms. Right, so The missionaries came, right? Colonization, boo, stuff. We hate colonization. They wanted to like save the savages, very similar to the colonization that happened like on our occupied lands right now, Turtle Island, right? Like these missionaries, they brought diseases, and they also tried to like inflict their way of life on us. And from then, our luckily were confused. They didn't really understand what was happening, what was going on. They saw their people dying. They saw their people getting sick. Closer to my mouth. Okay. Closer to my mouth. Oh. Sorry. I don't even remember where it was. They brought diseases. It was awful and stuff. Our people were like praying to our gods of old, right? Praying to our ancestors, getting in touch with Haina, getting in touch with land as they do, and nothing happened, right? And then these missionaries keep coming, these politicians, these businessmen, these bureaucratic capitalists wanting to colonize our islands, come and they bring medicine, and somehow this medicine works, right? Because they're treating Western diseases with Western medicine. And that can, like, that single kind of like event can become like the start of like the ideological breakdown of the separation of our Kanaka, our Lapui, from our like spiritual, cultural ways of being and understanding and moving throughout the world, moving towards this like trust and belief of these Western systems. And I think that now, even present day, I don't know what year it is, 2024, we see that. There are Kanaka that live at home in our islands that are like, yes, I don't know, I don't even have the words. They like love America, you know? And I think it's really hard because it's like, how can you fault these people, right, who have been brainwashed through like decades, generations upon generations and generations of imperial propaganda? Literally, like, on the colonizers' part, it was low-key like, not to like give them props because they suck, you know, but it was low-key smart, right? Like they saw the power that our people had and how connected they were to each other and our land. And they saw that and they used it against us, right? To break us down so that we don't have, like, we don't know who we are as people. So of course we're gonna be susceptible to these like outside people telling us who they want to be as people. Yeah, super long. I didn't even like mention on my notes. And like with all that, the colonization comes the separation of people from their land, right? Like I think that we all seen and experienced. And like for indigenous peoples and like my people specifically, the separation of Kanaka from Haina, of our people from our land, also. It's like a huge separation and barrier because like we're not separate from the land. We are the land is us, the land is our ancestor. Right. And so when both of these things kind of happen and they happen simultaneously, that is like what creates this like really unique, I feel like, situation in that there are people who believe in our liberation, who are like fighting for it. There are people who maybe want to, but they aren't there yet. And then there are people that maybe don't know that there is any other way other than the way that we've been brainwashed to believe.
Thank you. Thank you to the panelists for giving us that very important context. What we'll discuss next is what your struggle for freedom looks like and any specific tactics that you can share with us as we struggle for liberation today.
I love everyone's different approach to these questions. It's fun. It's fun to listen to. Okay, so at the core, like others have said, the struggle for freedom in Palestine is a land-based struggle, and it is a struggle for indigenous self-determination. That's like the root and the core of it all. The struggle for Palestinian freedom looks different on the various fronts depending on where you are. But in Palestine and in 1948 Palestine, or like what we call 48, which is the territory that others call Israel. The struggle for freedom includes all of the following, and like there are many more, but all of these. The preservation of indigenous plants like olive trees, the destruction of which is a very essential tactic of the Zionist project. In terms of incarceration of prisoners, there are hunger strikes to protest administrative detention, which is the British imported policy of legal policy of indefinitely detaining people for unknown and unnamed charges with no end in sight. Like, it is just a void vacuum of legal backing to incarcerate anyone that the Zionists don't want out and about. Resistance to that looks like hunger strikes and also the practice of smuggling sperm out of prison to continue building families and building a Palestinian people while men are indefinitely detained and cut off from their families and from their private life for decades, if not until their death. In diaspora, tactics look like mass mobilizations that we've seen a lot of. At this moment, there have been millions that have mobilized around the world, which is a new precedent for Palestine that we haven't seen before, which is a big deal. It looks like ceasefire resolutions to pressure local and federal governments to cut ties with the Zionist state. It looks like a BDS on universities that we've seen with the encampments and the severing of funding and also employment and bodies and ideology from the US and these knowledge production and material production institutions to this settler state of Israel. It looks like canceling the Israeli occupation forces training of US police and getting people to not go on birthright and not uphold Israel as a valid thing. For PSD specifically, we focus on gender and getting Zionist normalization out of gender and feminist spaces and create frameworks and projects that don't vilify women and men, specifically Arab men, and make space for humanity and recognize how gendered violence impacts all people who are impacted by Zionism. And that's my spiel.
Okay. I guess I'll do the same thing where I answer what it looks like for me, I guess, or what I think it should look like, and also what it looks like globally, because I can't stop watching the global struggle, because it is happening right now in many places. As maybe you can see, I'm wearing my Hezbollah t-shirt. Hezbollah is the resistance movement in Lebanon. Because of Hezbollah, the Zionist entity in the northern border has been on fire for several days. They want to go to war with Hezbollah, but they cannot. They will get locked up. And I really hope that they do, actually, because I feel like if they do, and I feel like if the Zionist entity is destroyed, I firmly believe that that will have an effect on global imperialism at large, as we know that the Zionist entity is the foot soldier for American imperialism, for European imperialism, for white supremacy, for all of the horrible things. Every horrible thing. I'll say European colonialism is the root of all evil. I do not care. I think it's true. And I don't think that's hyperbolic. I really don't. I'll say it. Fuck the US, fuck Canada, fuck France, fuck Australia, fuck New Zealand, fuck even the Spanish colonies that I'm currently learning about, but like they're fucked up too. um, sorry, not sorry. I'm so ready to fight. I really am. And I believe that one of our major responsibilities in the Imperial Core, where we are not getting bombed, where we are not getting sanctioned, where we are not getting starved. I mean, indigenous people and frustrated people are, so like, why the fuck aren't we fighting for them? And also, like, if Yemen can blow up six $50 million drones while they're getting bombed every day, what the fuck is wrong with us? Like, why aren't we getting our shit together? Forgive me. I know that's a hard thing to accept. I've been struggling with it too. It's really pissing me off. I hate my job. I want to leave it. I want to go. I want to fucking, like, fuck voting, fuck TV, fuck streaming, fuck my dinner. Like, I am so ready to give it all up for the people. And I think, and it's easier said than done. And I think that it is something that we all have to be doing, because that is the only thing that will allow us to be free. That will get us fully free, because that's how we were free before. And oh my God, let me look at my notes, because now I'm just rambling. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to reject all forms of settler colonialism. I think that we culturally also need to find faith, because I don't believe that any liberation struggle can be won without faith. And I think it's a very big tendency here due to, like, you know, whatever European trauma to hate religion, or to like side-eye religion. And I get it, like, I used to feel that way too, but I'm really seriously considering converting to Islam. That's a different story. Yeah, that's 1 minute, great. Yeah, that's what my struggle looks like. It looks like watching the struggles around us, because we do not have to reinvent the wheel. There have been many places that have successfully fought against the imperialists, and we will have to fight against them too, because they are trying to kill us.
No? Okay. I mean, who's ready to fight alongside the comrade? Give it all up. Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the program that Buy-in does, and also some of our tactics really quick. So for Buy-in, we have our 8-point program that defines our alliance's priority work. So we are united on what our direction is. It helps to define our campaigns, our fights for industrialization and land in the Philippines, and also for basic rights of workers and across the sectors, which include, youth, women, migrants. So we've got Migrante, Anabayan, sectors that are really, focusing their work on the issues that are impacting them. It really also looks like we under the 8-point program, we really take seriously engaging our united front work. We take seriously our solidarity work. We take seriously that we have to organize everybody against the enemy. So across, whether it is people who know a lot about, imperialism, all the way to people who are, nationals of the Philippines, but still learning things, we take this very seriously under our program. And then we take also very seriously our international solidarity work. So this 8-point program was developed through the painstaking organizing, so through lessons and organizing work that Filipinos across the country and the world have been doing. It is rooted in the analysis that we just offered, right? The analysis of the 3 basic problems being faced by the Philippines today, and it is a direct response to the same very problems, right? So we have to know our problems and we have to know how to organize to solve these problems. The struggle for freedom for us is every day. The struggle for freedom for the Philippines is an arduous process. It is a process where we have to conduct and build the mass movement. We have to painstakingly build and educate and organize and mobilize more and more people to be on the side against the enemy. We have to conduct campaigns that represent the issues of our people. Right now, Gabriella Arbayan actually is conducting the Care for Caregivers campaign, fighting for their rights and welfare. I'm sure that all caregivers, but we do have a couple Filipino caregivers in the back over there. Say hi. You are empowered to take up their fight and look around the room and know that everybody in this room is on the side of the caregivers fighting for their rights. Campaigns that actually reflect what we want to see in the world we want to build. If it's basic health rights, basic access to water, basic access to land, things that are our rights, our campaigns reflect that. There's also another thing that we do for the struggle for freedom. In the countryside, in the Philippines, there is a revolutionary movement that has been engaging in armed struggle for social and national liberation. Yeah. Yes. This decades-long struggle is carried out principally by workers and peasants who bear the brunt of the three basic problems in the Philippines. While we invite do not engage in armed struggle, contrary to the state's narrative. So here's the state's narrative that tries to paint us as terrorists. Contrary to what the state is trying to say, this fight in the countryside for liberation is part and parcel to our own fight. Because in order to address the roots of the armed conflict in the Philippines, there must be a thoroughgoing shift in our society, and that is through armed struggle.
I'm tempted to say same as. but really, it's the same. So, we have seen resistance in all modes and methods in Kashmir and everywhere else. We were sold by the British to Dogra King and Maharaja with land and its people for barely, some shoddy ducats. And then British and the Dogras taxed the artisans and the farmers, sometimes more than, and many times more than they actually produced. And there was a revolt in 1865 by the artisans and then the Kashmir shawl weavers who were actually crushed and killed. We have also seen an armed struggle in the 90s because, like I said, there have been different methods and modes of resistance. In the 1980s, youngsters tried to solve Kashmir by taking part in elections in Kashmir, but those were rigged by the government, and they put their own puppets and put these youngsters in jails and tortured them, who actually then went to take up the armed struggle, which was then crushed by laws like Armed Forces Special Power Act, where Indian Army person can kill anybody and not be answerable. So The political advocacy, international solidarity, like we are here today for, and then also diplomacy are some of the tactics, and also big one, awareness. Until we know, until we are aware, I don't think we can have solidarity. And then, becoming the voice of the political prisoners and the victims. Because, like in Kashmir, there is the laws are changing every day to crush the people, to crush the voices. There are journalists who are in jail because they write about the injustice that the Indian government does in Kashmir. So becoming their voices is something that that are a part and parcel of the struggle for freedom. Thank you.
Hello. Could you repeat the question?
Yes. What does your specific nation's struggle for freedom look like, and any tactics you can share with us?
Hello? Oh, no. Better? Okay. So what does our struggle for freedom look like? And I think I'm going to answer that question with another. And then I'm going to answer that question. So the question that I'm going to pose that I will answer is, what does freedom for Hawaiians look like, right? And I think, to me, right now, Hawaii as a state is heavily militarized, which hopefully we all know because we're here to cancel her back. Hawaii is, yeah. Currently, Hawaii is used as a defense and has been used as a defense of someone else's war, right? So freedom for us looks like not being used as a defense place for other people's war. Freedom looks like no more false solutions. Right now, we as a Kanaka, as a Laki, as a nation, we cannot live as we want because we currently are under the political and economic control of the United States of America. Freedom for us would look like getting the U.S. the fuck out. Freedom, peace, freedom. Little switcheroo, thank you. Freedom for our people also looks like re-educating and reimagining and re-remembering who we are and where we come from as a collective, as a nation. I think this is a long and hard process. It's intergenerational, right? It gathers our kupuna, our elders, with our keiki, our young ones, and everyone in between. We're sharing knowledge, we're learning about our culture. In that, I see the restoration and the renaissance of our culture and our people. I see our restoration of our ecosystems, whether that's a lo'i, which is a taro patch, or a lokohina, which is a fish, fish pond, thank you. I was like, what's the word I'm looking for? A fish pond. It's relearning our language, our native language that has been robbed from us due to colonialism. I don't know if you all know this, but when Hawaii was first annexed by the United States, our culture was outlawed. We were literally banned from speaking our native language in order to assimilate our people. We couldn't practice our traditions. We couldn't worship the way that we worshiped for generations and generations in order to assimilate our people to the American settler colonial project that was established. Freedom looks like bringing Kanaka home, right? Like for me, I live in diaspora from my homelands, and I yearn every single day to be there. And freedom for our people looks like bringing folks in diaspora home. A lot of folks are in diaspora for many different reasons, but a lot of it is like people cannot afford to live there, right? Like the price of living is just like ridiculous that our indigenous people are displaced from their lands. There's also like with the assimilation into the American settler colonial project, there's this like false premise and promise of what life on the continent will be like, right? That kind of like American exceptionalism. Oh, I'm gonna move to the mainland and have a white house with a picket fence and a nuclear family, all of those promises that, as we know, are false.
Thank you, Ari.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to give a little reminder to panelists to please speak as slowly as you can for our language justice team. Our next question, I will kind of ask to each of you individually. So starting with Layla, what does solidarity with Palestine look like?
Okay. I'm trying to get to like the very core because it's all so interconnected. But at the core of Palestinian solidarity, it looks like deferring to Palestinians in Palestine and upholding whatever they do to resist. But I think that October 7th is the perfect encapsulation of what that means and what that looks like. We saw very clearly how a resistance mission was reclassified and re-narrated as a terrorist attack. And we've heard from quite literally everybody who's been on the stage so far, how terrorism specifically is used to make people be quiet, as well as like completely repress entire movements. That's not a coincidence. And yes, I could go on, but I will not. I will go on, I will go on elsewhere. It also looks like making sure that an analysis of Zionism is present in every single context. A lot of times in other spaces, Palestine surfaces and then it disappears. And then something happens and it surfaces again and then it disappears again. And for PFC, for Palestinian organizations, and for people who are in true solidarity, that analysis and that understanding doesn't go away. Because we know that the conditions of violence are also constant. Just because we're not seeing it on the news every day doesn't mean that it's not happening every single day. And it's our responsibility to hold a political line and have a certain level of expectation for what Palestinian liberation means and how to do it, no matter what's happening around us. Like, it needs to always be at the forefront. Because Zionism also impacts all of our struggles, the same way that imperialism does, the same way that every single person here has named the British, right? Like, I love Love Island, but I don't like British colonialism. So, yeah, that's solidarity.
Okay, I feel like I'm gonna start everything with that. Solidarity, I wanna piggyback on what Layla said, in that, international solidarity certainly includes like internationalism, so understanding not only what is happening here, but also what's happening in the world. as Layla spoke to, Al-Aqsa flood was a very significant event in October 7th. It was painted as terrorism. We lost the president of Iran in a helicopter crash. Wow. Helicopter crash, and he is framed as a terrorist constantly. Muammar Gaddafi, who we also called in today, was framed as a terrorist. George Jackson was framed as a terrorist. Soleimani was framed as a terrorist. All of them have been murdered by colonialism and imperialism and capitalism. I think it would also behoove us to understand that, I think I already said this, but none of this is new, and this is what they have been doing the whole time, and they engage in counterinsurgency all of the time. So we have to understand what that is. We have to develop our class consciousness, both internally and globally. I keep saying it, but considering that we are part of the imperial core and we should be one of the most organized bodies for liberation, considering the access to resources that we have and all of those things. But yeah, like in addition to mobilization, because I think it's very easy for us to mobilize, we also have to become very organized. There is a concept called the unity of the fields that's happening in West Asia right now. And it is the coalescence or convalescence? The union, is that coalescence? Okay, okay. Where various Palestinian resistance factions, the Iranian resistance, the Lebanese resistance, the Yemeni resistance, the Iraqi resistance. Bahrain recently had a resistance group take up arms. And that's something that we can all aspire to. And that's something that all of our martyrs have been working towards and have unfortunately been murdered by the state before they could. So yeah, I think that those are the biggest things, and I will pass it on.
I guess this is what solidarity looks like here. This is what solidarity looks like out there. And this we're doing every day to strengthen each other's, strengthen our support for each other and the fight for national liberation with each other from where you're from. So for buy-in, even as overseas Filipinos, we want to make clear that we maintain the focus of our organizing is for the national and social liberation of the Philippines. And part of that is we are also internationalists who understand that imperialism is global. So the resistance must be to, like the comrade was saying, all the comrades have said, we must support and be in solidarity with other movements to truly defeat imperialism. That is how it's going to happen. This is the foundation, the bedrock of solidarity and alliance work that we engage in. So to show up for others in the midst of intensified struggle, take action together, wage joint campaigns against our enemy target. I hear there's a campaign against New Scale, coming together against the enemy, taking to the streets collectively and studying and learning from each other. I'll slow down. So studying and learning from each other, not just showing up, but actually engaging in what we know about our movements, each other's movements. So concretely, this has shown up in the ways that unions have stood in solidarity with Filipino workers, like the Communication Workers of America, CWA, took swift action against the unjust imprisonment of fellow communication worker Ann Kruger in the Philippines who went on strike in support of the Verizon workers in 2016. Locally, that looks like many different organizations working alongside Migrante, as we said, Gabriela, and for the Care for Caregivers campaign, which we have seen such a growth of solidarity and support, and that helps to sustain the work. There are other examples. There are organizations like Portland Committee for Human Rights in the Philippines, Kalikasan Solidarity Organization, solidarity organizations really supporting the Philippines. You can go another way, for example, to show solidarity is a couple of comrades here today went on a Bayan peace mission to non-Filipinos to witness what was happening in the Philippines. Not only does it help people in the United States to be educated about what's happening in the Philippines, but it also brings joy and hope to Filipino organizers in the Philippines to see that people around the world know that there is struggle happening. There are so many ways we can show up for each other. And it's important that we remember what binds us together. What is our political unities? What are our unities in general? It is our collective desire for liberation. We must remember it also takes time. Like any relationships, unity, solidarity takes time and consistent effort and constant desire to struggle towards unity. And this is what we see as really building the foundation of solidarity.
I think empathy and empathy, not just sympathy, but true empathy is how we can see my struggle as ours, and everyone else's struggle as our collective struggle. And so true empathy, and then also being aware, reading, researching, and writing, becoming the voice of the voiceless, and not getting bogged down by the colonizer tactics like terrorism, but identifying these tactics and calling them out. So thank you.
What does solidarity look like? Like a lot of my comrades up here have said, all of our struggles are interconnected, right? Like you being here is solidarity, us being here is solidarity. Specifically in the case of the illegally occupied Kingdom of Hawaii, I think like canceling RIMPAC. Canceling RIMPAC. Thank you guys. Solidarity also looks like learning about our history. There's tons of articles and YouTube videos and everything around what happened in Hawaii, what is currently happening in Hawaii. I urge you to learn, educate yourselves, learn about our history, our lahui, our people, our struggle, and educating others to do so the same. Another one would be not commodifying our culture. You're a little luau, cut that shit out. You know, like fake waves, cut that out. Don't do that. Like, yes, just like don't. And educating others, calling people out, calling people in when you see them doing it. Stop. It's offensive. Please stop. And then I think the last like super concrete thing is just like don't go to Hawaii, right? Like our kanaka are literally displaced because a loaf of bread is $15, right? And like tourists, people adding to the land puts struggle, strain on natural resources, on our people. Like so many kanaka are houseless. We cannot even afford to live on our own lands, and people have the gall to go there and stay in these like really fancy hotels. Be like, oh my God, I'm on a Hawaii vacation. No, none of that. Yeah.
Thank you. Our last question for each of the panelists is, how is national liberation important to the struggle to end US-led war?
I want to be mindful of time, so I'll be very brief. There cannot be national liberation while the US exists. We all know, right? Like the US will continue to be at war because it's financially beneficial to those in power. And national liberation struggles and anti-colonial struggles threaten that. And we can't let them win.
Thank you. Agreed. I'll say it again, national liberation will not happen with the US in existence. And our view of what national liberation looks like should be very anti-US and should be certainly focused on the other countries in the world that do have to face the worst parts of imperialism, and the worst parts of colonialism and the worst parts of capitalism. Because, yeah, just by being on this particular landmass, we have a lot. This is such a goofy word, but that's what it is. You know, just like Ari said, you know, like it's like don't go to Hawaii. None of us should be going to Hawaii because there's no reason for us to be there, and we have to fix this place first. And also, I think too that we should be ready to abandon this place to join other liberation struggles in other parts of the world, with all of the like utmost respect for their struggles, obviously. But I do think that is something that we can also do. And yeah, organize. Join an organization, create an organization, get your political education, look at all of the histories of liberation struggles. They're all out there. Read from the fighters, honor the fighters, honor the martyrs. That's a good place to end. Honor the martyrs.
Thank you, comrades. So how is the national liberation important to the struggle to end US-led war? So the fight for national liberation in the Philippines, the US stronghold in the Asia-Pacific region, this fight is integral. The victory of our fight, our people's fight, will contribute to the global weakening of the imperialist chain that the US has forged over decades, centuries. This is how we see the importance towards in the struggle against US-led war. We're going to do a little exercise. In solidarity in our movement, we say Isang Bagsak, which means one down. It comes from the unity clap of Filipino and Mexican grape workers in the 1960s, which is a show of solidarity among exploited workers. These days, it's a signal at the end of our meeting, which we're not done yet, but it's just a signal, a gathering action or mobilization, in that it needs one down. We're one step closer to victory collectively, right? And in our fight for national and social liberation, each victory brings us one step closer to the end of the US-led war. So each victory of oppressed nations against its oppressor, the chains of imperialism are broken down every single time, right? So I'm just gonna practice it with y'all right now so we can hear the unity clap. I'm going to practice it with you all right now so we can hear the unity clap. And maybe at the end of our time together later on today, we can do it again. So when I say isang bagsak, we all clap or snap or stomp, okay? So isang bagsak. Cool. Soon we're going to do that together in unity and unison, and I can't wait to continue building solidarity with y'all.
The question is national liberation and how it's important to the struggle to end the US-led war. We find similarities in these US-led wars everywhere in the world, where the drones, the white phosphorus, the bombs, it's the same artillery used on the people. In Kashmir, what we have identified is the gears on IDF soldiers are also now seen on, on Indian soldiers in Kashmir. It's the same gear. So it's somehow tied somewhere. We recently saw bombs dropped in Rafah had made in India written on. Again, the white phosphorus also now used in Kashmir. It is seen and identified that the weapons tested in Palestine are then used in Kashmir. We need to have a broader anti-war effort, build a global coalition against militarization and occupation for justice, peace, and human rights.
National liberation important to the struggle of the US and US-led war. In Hawaii, right? Hawaii is currently used as the gateway to Pacific. A free and sovereign Hawaii means no US there. How are they going to get to the Pacific? Hopefully they don't. A free and sovereign Hawaii also will set the precedent for other occupied Pacifica people. I think about my Pacifica relatives in Tahiti and American Samoa, in Guam, and so many other places. Thank you. National liberation doesn't just mean neocolonialism and neocapitalism, right? National liberation means the complete removal of all of these structures, not just removing the physical occupation, but also the political and economic occupation that exists in all of our lands.
Thank you to our panelists for all of their beautiful answers and explanations to every question. Can we get another hand? That wraps up the questions for our panelists today. I hope everyone can take many things away from this that you'll carry throughout the day today and throughout organizing in the future. For me, something that really stood out was Adil said, you cannot be in true solidarity until you are aware, until you educate yourself. And that's something that we all can learn from as we go forward, educating ourselves and organizing in our struggles. So thank you for that. Yeah, go with the primary sources. Go with the people who have the experience. All right, I'll pass the mic now to our MCs again.
Thank you to our amazing